Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about Matic, this recent rally it's been seeing, and whether or not we might expect this to continue. If you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates about our indicators and more over there. So Matic has actually been an asset that's been quite impressive, generally speaking, in this bear market, or especially coming off the lows back here in June. When you see that where we're trading currently, we're up as much as around 260% from the lows. And also, if we just look at from the high, coming back, going all the way back there from December to where we are right now, we're down 61%, which isn't great, but is actually not too bad compared to a lot of other altcoins that are down, 90% currently off their highs. So Matic has actually been holding up pretty well recently, even relative, especially to a lot of altcoins that are out there. So, what's going on right now? What's part of what's going on with this strength? Well, with this recent rally and this recent pump that's seen, on the 4th, for example, a 22% move to the upside. Well, there's a couple different factors that are really leading to this. So one of the big ones is that Meta, the big company, they announced that Instagram is going to have basically an NFT integration that's going to be on Polygon. So people are going to be able to exchange, mint NFTs, exchange them, etc. And they're going to be using Polygon as the network for that. So obviously that's a bullish catalyst, right? The fact that this big company, Meta, is now partnering basically with Polygon to offer NFTs through Instagram, which has, millions and millions of users. That's a very bullish possibility, for Matic. So it makes a lot of sense that Matic would rally off that news. Also, another thing that's been going on is that Reddit avatar NFTs have become a big thing, and those are also on Polygon as well. There's been a lot of activity with these, so that's just another kind of hype driver for Matic. And another demand driver, frankly, for Matic. So not only is it a hype driver, but also if you want to be minting NFTs, exchanging NFTs, all that stuff, you need Matic to do your transactions. So that's one of the reasons why Matic has been doing so well recently, is that there's some very bullish news, some bullish kind of news narratives that are now out there for Polygon being really used, by some of these big platforms for NFTs. And that's important, right? Because if you're going to think about, can a rally sustain itself, one of the big things in crypto often is, what is the narrative? If there's a narrative driver behind a rally, it can go quite far. Just think of ETH and the merge. That brought ETH's price up quite a bit, leading up into the merge being this narrative driver. I think it's very reasonable to think that this kind of news also is a pretty good narrative driver, especially because it kind of came out of the blue. It wasn't known. So this isn't likely to be a sell the news type of event just because it wasn't known until it was announced, which then led to the hype. So let's go ahead and look at some of our models here at the channel, then to ask a question about where might things go from here for Matic? Can this strength continue? So let's go ahead and flip over. I'm going to start by talking about the risk models that we have here at the channel. So the upside downside potential indicators, or UDPI for Matic. I'm going to start off by talking about the long-term version that cares about moves that play out over months. Very much macro in its focus. So if you're not familiar, values that are up, that are high, closer to 5 are high risk. Values down are low risk, -5. This is the price action of Matic over time, just color-coded to the risk level. So, tops, these local highs tend to be in the red, whereas these accumulation zones, these low-risk zones, are in the green. And this is what the model is basically classifying. So the model does a great job of identifying as the price action of Matic develops, when it's likely getting overextended and a pullback is likely, and also when are good accumulation zones before it rallies to the upside. You can see that in this drawdown into the June lows, the UDPI identified that as being a great accumulation zone for Matic, and then sure enough, off to the races we have gone. And we can see this if we just look at the raw output of the model. So yellow line here is the Matic price over time, white line is the UDPI level over time. And as you can see, we got all the way down to almost -4 down here at those June lows, and then now we're up over 260% to the upside. Anyone would be super happy to have been accumulating down in this zone that the UDPI was flashing this kind of low risk signal. And so that's the long-term UDPI. So where we currently stand right now is at a little bit above -1. So that means that the model thinks that overall there's more realistic upside than downside potential in the longer term for Matic, but we're getting close to parity, right? We're getting close to that even point of kind of an even upside versus downside potential. But of course, going into the positive certainly happens. We did it back through here. We went into the positive range. I think it's very plausible we go back up there again here, especially if this rally is able to extend. So I think there's nothing from a risk perspective on the long-term version that's saying that this has to be the top right now. I actually think more upside is very plausible here. Not guaranteed, obviously, but plausible. And if we look at the short-term UDPI, we see a similar story. So this cares about moves that play out over days to weeks, so much shorter in its time preference or its time horizon. And we see a similar story, right? We got down to -4 actually on the dot here on the short-term UDPI in this big capitulation down here in June. And then we went all the way up actually in this rally up to above 1 on the short-term UDPI, where we then had to kind of consolidate, correct a little bit. And now we're shooting back to the upside again. I think it's totally plausible to target this same level here on this rally as well, or a very similar level. So until we see a short-term UDPI getting up to, around 1 or above it, I'm not going to be thinking that we have to be getting to a top anytime soon. So I would think that this level might be a reasonable place to expect a local top to form. I don't think we're there yet. I think more upside is reasonable. Again, not guaranteed, and certainly not any kind of financial advice. But that's just the way that I'm seeing it. I think we have more gas in the tank potentially for Matic. And if we also just look at a relative standpoint, so one of the nice things that we can do with the UDPI is not only look at the asset against itself, but look at it relative to other assets. And so here, what I'm showing you is several different assets. They're short, medium, and long-term UDPIs. The medium cares about moves that play out over weeks to months, so it kind of sits between the short and the long in its time horizon that it's watching. And we see that Matic, is generally speaking still in the negatives, a bit below a bit below 0. And if we compare this to other assets, we can see it is more overextended than a lot of other ones, but not all of them, right? Quant, which had gone on a crazy rally on its long and medium term, is still more overextended than Matic is here. ETH, interestingly enough, is more overextended in the short term than Matic. And again, as I mentioned, until we get up to closer to these kind of +1s, +2 type levels, I don't think we have to be hitting a local top anytime soon. So even though Matic has pumped decently already, I think it actually might be able to pump further. Now, again, not financial advice, and obviously, FOMO is always a bad idea in crypto. But at this point, I don't think we're necessarily at that super late stage in this, short-term rally just yet necessarily. The risk profile is not telling me that we're there yet right now. So just something that I'm looking at, I actually think Matic could move further to the upside realistically from here. No guarantees. That's what I'm thinking. Another thing that gives me hope as well for Matic is if we look at the market direction classifier, the MDC for Matic. This is a trend indicator that we have here on the channel. And so basically if you're above this critical level that it creates, so the way the model works is it looks at the asset's price action, it creates this critical level, and that above that, it's bullish, below that, it's bearish. And so you can see that when you go into these big uptrends, you flip from bearish to bullish, you can see some nice moves to the upside. And we actually saw that back over here, where we kind of got above the MDC critical level, and then we've generally speaking just been up ever since, even with these kind of corrections. You'll see that even though we corrected down here, the MDC actually stayed bullish on Matic throughout that whole time. And, it's paid off. It has actually been, vindicated in its bullish disposition. So really, as long as we stay above the MDC critical level, I'm not really too concerned. If we flip below that, then I'll think that wedding rally that we've been on is probably at its end, and that downside might then follow. We're not there yet. In fact, we have a good amount of room. We're currently trading well over $1, and the MDC critical level right now is at 85 cents. So nothing to say right now that we have to be hitting some kind of that there's a special concern from the MDC's perspective. As long as we stay above the critical level, then we can be relatively happy. Now, this is a dynamic level. This will change with time, and so this won't just stay at 85 cents. This might then, track up towards it. But until we get a cross down below it, I think the momentum is definitely still in the bullish category for Matic. So generally speaking then, to kind of sum up what I've been talking about here, Matic has moved very impressively here, and it's pulling back today a bit. But from just what I'm seeing from our different models, from our risk models, from our trend model, you know, and also the fact that there are these very strong narrative drivers, I think it's actually totally plausible for Matic to keep on moving. And so maybe, you know, getting into this range up here, we might see some more resistance as we get kind of back in there. You know, we can look at the volume profile of, you know, how much volume is transacted at different levels. You can see that the next kind of big level is up in here. And so for right now, we actually bounced off of the bottom part of this big spike in volume that's transacted at these levels right here. But if we're able to go back up and retest it, you know, we might actually be able to push deeper into this big volume kind of profile, this volume buildup here. And then if we can get above that, actually then a breakout even further could be plausible. Now that's not my base case. I would actually expect this rally to start petering out up here. But also if we do get up here, and expect things like the short-term UDPI to get more into that overextended territory, which would give confirmation that that would likely be a topping point. So, you know, this could be the top of the rally that we're seeing right here, but I actually think it's very plausible we could end up pushing higher from here. So not financial advice, just what I'm seeing. I think Matic might have a bit more in the tank yet to give. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there.